In today's show, it's a mock draft. It's a points mock draft on Yahoo. We're going to get into it. So, Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We are available on all platforms. So, we've done a category league mock draft last week. This time it is a points league mock draft. 12 teams, Yahoo standard scoring, doing a 14-man roster with only one center. I did the two centers last time. It's bullshit. We don't need to do that. We're going to go back to what I recommend as a somewhat compromise in terms of league settings and roster positions. So we're going to do a points league mock draft. So we might as well get started and start talking about it. In fact, I lied. We're not going to go straight into the mock draft because I'm going to tell you now that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. NFL season is here. We're so close. And FanDuel gives you these incredible offers, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. That's not new customers. That's all customers. All you do is bet $5 and you get that $100 off YouTube or NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. And then it is the best time you join FanDuel. You get these bonus bets. You got YouTube TV, and you can use the bonus bets on anything. You can use it on spreads, on money lines, over-unders, player props, futures, whatever it is. Doesn't even have to be the NFL. You can use those bonus bets for whatever you want over on FanDuel. Maybe you're a big college volleyball guy and there's FanDuel lines of that. Don't know if there is, but there could be. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL season with an offer that you won't want to miss. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. And now we're going to get started. We're going to be 5 minutes away from starting the mock draft, but I have someone on the show that's going to be joining me in this mock draft that, amazingly, I haven't had on the show before. I don't know how. He's been working at RotoWire for ages. I believe he's the NBA editor over at RotoWire these days, and that is Alex Barutha. Alex, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I feel like the different time zones don't help, and we're all. I mean, both of us are both quite busy. You're pumping out shows like crazy.
Yeah, you're always chucking stuff out. Hey, he wants to come on a mock draft, and it's like 4 a.m. And I don't think so. I don't think I'm coming on at 4 a.m., mate. But we've worked it out. You're finally here after years and years of doing this, and we're ready to do a Yahoo Points League mock draft. What have you found in this, really early going through the fantasy basketball drafting season and preseason? What's been some of the things that you've noticed as takeaways?
As far as early takeaways, I mean, I think people are more than willing, especially early in the draft season, just to completely take chances on guys that they like, because ADPs aren't necessarily as reliable at this point. So it's harder for us to say like, hey, I think I can wait 2 or 3 rounds to grab this guy because everybody's just being really aggressive right now.
Which is totally okay. Like I don't have a problem with that. I'm sort of softening a little bit more on my stances with that, and I'm looking more. Again, my major theme I think for this season, heading into drafts, is looking at variance is a big part of things, week to week variance, and 80-90% of people are playing head to head leagues, so 1 week at a time. So variance is a huge part of it, but also the further you go into the draft, like just hunt for upside. I don't have bust rates on picks, but I reckon as we get into round 8, round 9, they get pretty high. So I don't care if a guy necessarily, if I pick at round 9, might be the eighth round player. That doesn't matter because he also might be not worth holding on to at all. I'd rather just take some guys where I look at it, and I don't know how to empirically do this, but look, you're getting drafted in the 9th round, but I can see how you get to the 20th best player, and I'd prefer that guy where the best I can see is, well, maybe you're 75th. Like, I think that I'm leaning more that way. So I think there are certain situations where I go, this doesn't make any sense, but I'm a little bit more, let's hunt that upside.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, there's guys you can draft, if you need a high floor at the end of drafts, right? There's they're sort of like the PJ Washingtons or, Bogdan Bogdanoviches of the world that you can get if you want a relatively high floor, but they don't have as high of an upside. If you draft Naz Reid and then Karl Anthony Towns or Rudy Gobert gets hurt, and then all of a sudden Naz Reid's playing 29 minutes a game, he could be like, top 50 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And look, we just don't know. Like those guys, those solid guys, the Bogdanovic is a great example. Like Sadiq Bey is one of those players as well. Like, what's the best case for these guys? It's going to take, maybe it is, a couple of other guys get injured on their team, that opens things up. But overall, they're just a pretty boring sort of a player. And I talked with Matt Smith on my tiers show the other day. Like, we look at drafting in snake drafts versus auctions, whereas in auction, 35 guys will go for $1, right? That's pretty, or 40 guys might go for $1. That's pretty common practice. But in a snake draft, we look at, well, this guy's actually round 11 and this guy's round 13. When in the end, they're all $1 players. They're all the same. All these guys, there's no real difference. And then there's 40 of those guys, 30 of those guys that sit on the waiver wire that are around that same valuation mark. So you're going for this guy who's really steady here. Well, I could replace him with 7 other guys pretty easily, I think, towards the end or off the waiver wire versus and a round 11 guy is not that different to a round 13 guy or a third choice waiver wire player.
Yeah, I know you guys have that on Basketball Monster, the Z score. That'll kind of tell you like how much better a certain player is than another guy. And so it's important to especially look at like per minute fantasy value as well. Like some guys might, 0.8 fantasy points per minute. So even if they get 35 minutes a game, what are they really going to do? There are other guys who are kind of, 1.2 fantasy points per minute. All of a sudden he gets 30 minutes a game, then you're cooking.
We're getting into this draft now. There's 3 seconds to go before it starts, but that is a key thing. That's one of the things I have found doing a lot of research on this for points leagues. The 2 biggest factors when you're looking at things are minutes and usage. They're the things that correlate the tightest to more fantasy points. So when you're looking at things, look at who's going to play more minutes and look at who's going to get more usage. They're the 2 things we look at. And then you have points per minute is a really interesting thing. Often as minutes scale up, that number can drop, but it is really, really key. Let's start things off. Jokic goes at 1, Doncic goes at 2. You're picking at pick 6. I'm all the way down here at pick 12. Yeah, how do you approach this different to like a category league?
I don't care as much about specialists. I care more about role within the offense. Can you score? Do you pass? Is your role or minutes scalable? So I think of it a lot more as just how involved is this guy in the offense rather than is this like a 3-and-D player or is this a blocks and rebounds specialist?
Yeah, that's right. Now, I saw this post on Reddit a while ago. Someone was talking about, I'm in a points league and I'm going to attack it this way. I'm going to get point guard in round 1. Then I'm going to get my shot blocking bigs in round 3. And I'm going to get these 3-point shooters. Like, that's not how you do it in a points league. Like, you know what you get? Let me get a guy who scores more fantasy points in round 1, and then let me get the guy who scores more fantasy points in round 2. And then when we get to round 7, I'll probably just get the guy who scores more fantasy points. Like, that's what it's about. It doesn't really matter where they come from to a degree, but knowing that scoring and usage tops most things there. Luka goes at 2 after Jokic. Embiid at 3. Giannis at 4. Shea at 5. Alex, you are up. Is this falling how you want it to?
Well, I was hoping to get SGA, but I will take Tatum for, I believe, the 3rd mock draft in a row at number 6. Again, I mean, it's just setting up for him to handle the ball even more. He's improved as a real-life player and fantasy player every single season. He's in his prime. He never gets hurt. I mean, there's a million things to like about Jason Tatum.
He's an interesting guy because so much of the value that people ascribe to him in fantasy drafts is not getting hurt, and especially it's more from a category league perspective that he's never reached the heights of being the 4th best player. He's like the 10th or 8th or 10th or 11th best guy. Then if he does get hurt, then any of that value disappears. But around that area at pick 6 in a points league, like your other options aren't super, super strong. Halliburton's worse in a points league. Curry's worse in a points league. LaMelo Ball's what would have been someone I would have considered around that spot as well. But the other guys that I'd look at, it's probably like an Anthony Davis, but how confident am I going to feel in that? I know who I want at pick 12. I want Sabonis at pick 12. I think that he is a really strong points league guy. I think he's a first-round points league guy, probably not for category leagues. And I think given how far down he is on the queue here, where he sits at like 22, I think I'll be able to get him unless these people are all switched on. Damian Lillard goes at number 10. While we look at these next couple of picks, how do you feel about Lillard? How do you think that if he is traded to Miami that the value drops? Like, how far do you think it goes from there?
Yeah, I mean, I know he has first-round potential. Like, he's reached that point before. The thing is, even if the situation was completely static and I knew Lillard was staying in Portland and it was going to be another year like it's been, I would still kind of want to get him in that like start of the 2nd round. So with the sort of confusion about his role, where he's going to play, I just don't want to draft him this high. But if he does go to Miami, he was probably either be their number one or their number two option. And I would imagine it would be Bam who would kind of take the hit there. So he's still definitely draftable. It's just a weird situation.
I agree that with that, he would. I think he would be the number one guy. By the way, I took Sabonis at 12 because Anthony Davis went at 11. Now I'm like, okay, so is it Durant? Is it Booker? Is it Anthony Edwards that I take in this spot? I think, even though I think Durant probably scores more points, I am going to how am I going to do it? This actually might be the spot where I take Anthony Edwards, where his lower percentages don't matter as much.
Yeah.
Let's just mix it up. All right. I'm not big on taking Anthony Edwards at that spot in a category league, but here I am going to do it. But to me, him, Durant, Booker, Trae Young were all relatively close in this area. But yeah, back to Lillard. I think he would be the number one option in Miami. He takes a slight hit, but you're right. I think it would kill Bam. Honestly, the third guys often take a pretty sizable hit most of the time. And the way that Bam was able to generate his value, because remember, Bam was a big assist guy in the past, and then Kyle Lowry came and took that away. And he was able to make up some of that value by getting usage back. Well, the problem is if Dame comes, Dame not only takes the assists away, but he takes the usage away as well. And that's going to be really hard for Bam to recover from. Or back to the levels that he has been over the past couple of seasons.
Yeah, and I still think, Bam is just a really solid player to grab, but in we're not talking category leagues, but his blocks and steals rates are relatively low. Doesn't hit any threes or anything, but, going from like the second to the third option on offense would definitely hurt Bam.
I think his usage was way up. It was like 24 or something last season. It was way up from where it had been in the past, and he was able to maintain that with that assist not really bouncing back and having those low defensive stats, which, of course, you're having that high usage in points leagues is really important. But if he goes back to 20 usage, well, he might be like the 50th best guy instead of a 24th or something like that.
Yeah, I've heard you drafted Anthony Edwards. I've heard you exercise caution about drafting him as high as his ADP is this year.
Yeah, that's mainly for category leagues because of the subpar free throw percentage. And I think the way that he improves overall as a player is getting to the free throw line more. But we know that if you get to the free throw line more and you hit 75% of them, that's not really great. And his field goal percentage is a little bit down there as well, so I'm not really sure where that goes. Is he ever going to develop into a high assist guy? I'm not sure. But in this, I look in a points league, he might average 28 a game or 27 a game. So the efficiency doesn't really bother me that much. So I'm okay with it there. I just wouldn't do it in a category league. So the guys that I was all debating after I took Edwards at 13, Trae Young 14, Donovan Mitchell 15, Devin Booker 16, Kevin Durant 17, Jaren Jackson 18, which I really do not like in the slightest for a points league, but it is your pick, so you can talk us through. I think Jaren's like a third round points league guy, by the way. Talk us through what you're doing here.
Yeah, I don't necessarily love a lot of the options in this range in a points league necessarily. But let's see, I already have Tatum, small forward. Could go Bridges. I do like Bane a lot this year.
Bane's an interesting one because he's going to be bigger early on, but when you come to fantasy playoffs, his production is probably going to be less than his averages.
Yeah, true. I'm going to end up just taking Mikal Bridges. I think I don't necessarily love Bridges this year, but I think he'll be just a solid like second or third round option. He's going to be, he's the number one scoring threat on the Nets. It kind of remains to be seen how involved I think Dinwiddie is going to be as a passer. Like when Dinwiddie got traded back to Brooklyn, he was averaging like 10 assists a game.
It was crazy.
But I think they're going to try to put the ball in the hands of Bridges a little bit more.
I'm a little worried about that. What Bridges did last season joining Brooklyn is not 100% repeatable. I am a little worried about that. His defensive numbers dropped off. He started relying more on mid-range shots, and that's not a great thing to rely upon. We'll see what happens if Simmons actually does play and where he fits into the rotation in terms of ball, because he obviously needs to handle the ball quite a bit. After Bridges goes 19, Kyrie's at 20, Towns at 21. I don't really like Towns at 21. I think he's actually more of a third to fourth round player in a points league. Harden at 22, LeBron at 23. Now, LeBron is, I think, a pretty clear top 10 per game points league guy. It's just really hard to trust his health at age literally almost 40, Alex.
Yeah, it's I think there are plenty of guys in the NBA these days where if you get 65 games out of them, you're like, this is amazing. And I think LeBron is in that category. You're right, he's a good points league player because his 3-point rate, his free throw percentage especially is kind of all over the place. He's hard to trust in that category. Like in category leagues, if LeBron shoots 76% for the free throw line, which he hasn't done in a while, it's great. But then if he has another season where he's like high 60s, low 70s, it's tough. But that kind of comes out in the wash in points leagues.
Yeah, it does. LeBron at 23, Siakam 24, Jaylen Brown 25. Okay, with all those ones, I think they're all pretty strong picks there. We are getting back to you. So who is your target here with 4 picks to go before it's your selection?
I think this is a fine spot. There's some injury risk guys who I don't mind in this spot. It's kind of like Paul George.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't reach this high for Zion. I do like Jimmy Butler here. I'm not like horribly worried about Lillard coming in and destroying Butler's usage. I think he would still be fairly high usage. Julius Randle in a points league, I don't mind. I mean, just at least from a minutes standpoint, he's gonna get the minutes.
He's at the top of my
and
queue.
we know
he's at the top of my queue. So we'll see. If you don't take him, I'm probably going to take him, I'd say.
I think I'm gonna go with well, let's see. We have to see who Bae Young drafts here. I also don't mind Brunson here.
Interesting. Oh yeah, no, I've got him pretty high actually in my points league rankings.
Yeah, he's pretty much a lock to see, like he's the number 1 option on the team. Tibbs might play him 40 minutes in competitive games. Like that has to count for something, right? And
yeah.
Let's see. We saw Cade Cunningham went. That's interesting.
Yeah, I had him there as well.
Yeah, let's see here. You know what? I think I actually am going to go with Jalen Brunson.
Okay.
It might be a small reach,
I don't think it is.
Yeah, like I said, it's hard to replace the kind of upside a guy has where I don't think it's really a debate between him and Randall as who's the number 1 option on that team. And when you have a guy who's handling the ball all the time, could see 40 minutes again in competitive settings, it's kind of hard to turn that down.
Yeah, I think they both had almost the same usage, I think, last season, about 26%. But look, I think, I said Randall's the top of my queue here. If I gets to him, then actually he's not quite the top of my queue, but I'm not ready to take the guy that is the top of my queue, which of course is Zion. Like Zion's a top 20 points league guy per game. We just don't know how much he's going to play. So you got to then debate where you take that risk on him. But Randall's right at the top here for me, and him and Brunson are going to get a ton of the ball and play a ton of minutes until something goes wrong, which we hope it doesn't. Wembanyama goes at 31. Kawhi goes at 32. Is that far enough down for you for Kawhi?
I think it's okay. He was so elite to end last season, but
amazing.
It's just really difficult for me. If I could get him in the 4th, I would feel completely fine about that, which means I'll probably never end up getting him because it seems like he's just settled in as a 3rd round guy.
Yeah, I think 4th is totally okay, but you always got to. I would have been very happy with him in round 3 had he not torn his meniscus in the playoffs because things were trending very much in the right direction. But he did tear his meniscus. So I think that sets back a little bit of the stuff in terms of back-to-backs and the risk of coming back from another knee surgery. That's a real problem there. DeJounte Murray's at 33, Paul George is at 34. It's getting to my pick now, but I just want to take on DeJounte Murray because I talked about him in a show the other day, and someone left a comment on the YouTube channel saying, man, how do you say that DeJounte was a disappointment? He lived up to all expectations last season, and I felt like I was taking crazy pills because he was like early on pre-ranked at 7 or 13, and he finished like 35th or 40th or whatever. It is my pick. De'Aaron Fox goes at 35. Now, Randall's ranked 59th. I'm not going to worry about playing the let's wait to see where he goes later on because this is his value. In fact, his value is higher than this. I think he's a 2nd-round player in a points league. So if I get him here at the 3-4 turn, I'm going to take him. Think about next one. I'll just think about next pick. But you tell me what you think about DeJounte Murray's season last year, just to maybe make me feel a little bit better about not feeling as crazy.
He was just. I think it's exactly what you said. He was way too overranked. I think I came into last season hoping to get DeJounte Murray in the 3rd or the 4th round, which is kind of where he ended up finishing. But the reality was people were drafting him like early in the 2nd. And so it's all about expectations, right? I was just never going to end up drafting him. So to me, it wasn't a disappointment. But to a lot of sites that had him ranked so high after he did so well in San Antonio, it's just the usage. He was never going to be able to see that kind of usage.
Yeah, look, him and Towns were 2 guys that were ranked highly last year that I was down on. And the reason that I was because I just I sort of could see what was going to happen, and it played out exactly that way. Usage down, assists down, rebounds down, and he didn't maintain top 2 steal numbers. Very simple stuff. He's still solid enough, but if you took him early round 2, well, you got burnt. And that's where he was ranked on most sites. And I think I had him at 30th or whatever it was like that. I ended up going Randall at 36 and Evan Mobley at 37. I had a couple of other names there on my list that I could have gone with. Zach LaVine was right about that area. And we're starting to get into that area around 4 where I want to look for maybe a little bit more upside. Give me a round or so of upside. Whereas I'm not sure LaVine has that. Like I look at him and go, yeah, you're good. But I don't know how it gets better. I'm not sure how it gets worse, but I'm not sure how it gets better. How are you approaching that? Like, do you have a switch zone where you go, well, I'm now in this round, or now I'm just shooting upside only, or how are you trying to base that through your drafts?
I base it a lot on some actually the higher risk guys like Zion, because I think so. Maybe it is around the 6th round because Zion's ADP, is around the 60 mark. I think he has 2nd or 3rd round upside as a per game guy. So in that 6th round range, the hope is to look for guys who can reach those sorts of heights that aren't Zion Williamson. And then as soon as I kind of run out of guys in my own head that don't fit that mark, then I'm okay drafting him. So I guess around that zone, which is also about the zone that I think you can start drafting John Morant. So I think this year in particular, you could wait as long as 6 to really start going for upside, but earlier would not be bad either.
That's the guy I was going to ask you about next, because in my projections, both Jar and Zion are top 20 per game players. But, of course, Jar's missing minimum 25 games. Zion's probably missing minimum 25 as well. We don't know that. And, it's about where you pull the trigger on it. Like, Jar's rank at 79 on Yahoo is probably not the right spot for a category league. But, man, for a points league, that's really amazing because that is top 20 upside, whereas I don't think he's got that in a category league. I wouldn't want to take both of those guys, but I'm telling you now, Zion's at the top of my queue. Now, you're going to have another 2 picks in between. But if he gets to me at 60, I'm snagging him at 60 without really any question.
Yeah, I mean, Morant's a guy you can average, basically 30 and 10 when he gets cooking. And in a points league, that's crazy. It doesn't really matter what you're doing otherwise. Someone takes Garland. That was a guy who was definitely on my list.
Ingram 41, Garland 42 go there as well.
I think, where is he on here? I don't think he got taken. I'm looking for Paolo Banchero.
He's the other guy that I was hoping to get at 60 and 61. Yeah, he hasn't been taken. That's a good pick. I think he's a top 40 player in points leagues, maybe top 30.
Yeah, I mean, he proved so much last season. Yeah. And if you take away that he was really bad for what was it, February that he went like 1 of 30 or something from the from the 3-point line?
Single digit 3-point shooting, I think he had.
Exactly. So if you take out that part of his season, I mean, he was fantastic, and he's only going to continue growing as a player. I mean, there are so few things that he's bad at, and they hurt you more in a category league, that's for sure. Because a points guy, you love Banchero.
No, it's one of those big discrepancy guys that I talked about when I did a show on that last week. Like the difference in rankings where Banchero sits is huge, and he is a legitimate 3rd round option in a points league. Now he's gone here in the middle of the 4th to you. In some leagues, you'll see him slide to 6 in a points league because of where he's pre-ranked on Yahoo. So just be aware of that. That's where you can really snag some value, and that's understanding what X rank is and what it isn't. And that's where you can get that value, because X rank tries to slot between what a category league and a points league is, probably leaning 65% category leagues, but there are guys who might have 70, 100 spots difference in their rankings between the two. So find those guys and get them. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
After Zion went at 44, Van Vliet 45, Jamal Murray 46, Porzingis 47, which I think is okay there. LaVine at 48, DeRozan 49. I think it's all okay. There's a few guys that I still have in my list here who probably should have gone already, I would say. Drew Holiday goes at 50. There's the 2 guys who are at the top of my list who aren't Ja Morant are the 2 Wizards guys, Poole and Kuzma, who are going to put up big points league numbers. The worry, I guess, you're going to have there is, do they play all the way through? But if you end your season at the right time, I think you're going to be okay. But I think that they are probably getting overlooked a little bit here.
Those are tough. I mean, the tanking in recent years, especially by certain teams, Spurs especially, has been so absurd that you have to at least have a little pause when drafting from some teams in that very, very bottom. Even the Spurs, again, I think the Pistons you should watch out for. I'm a little higher on the Hornets than most, but, who knows? So I think your point with Poole and Kuzma is definitely on point.
The Blazers and the Pistons, the Spurs were pretty bad last season. The Blazers and the Pistons have been egregious for 2 straight years. Like, just as soon as the All-Star break hits, they're just fake injuries and guys sitting the whole time. Jeremy Grant just didn't play a game for 2 years after the All-Star break in Detroit, and the same thing happened in Portland. So, and no one's really mentioning Portland as that risk of that this season. It's happened pretty aggressively the last 2 years. There goes Jordan Poole, though. DeRozan 49, Drew Holiday 50, Walker Kessler 51. I don't know about... Oh, that's not bad for Kessler. 52 for Jordan Poole, which is a real steal there. And again, I think there is a chance that he plays all the way through fantasy playoffs and then doesn't play the last 2 to 3 weeks of the season.
It's very possible. So it's hard to reflect that in the ranks because you don't necessarily want to project a guy for like 62 games on the weird chance that the team tanks. It'd be better if we had some sort of confidence interval. Kuzma goes, though, as we were just discussing about him. I don't have a center yet, and I think this is about the time where there's a point in drafts where centers start flying off the board entirely. And I think I am just going to go ahead and take Sengun here. I will say I don't have a ton of confidence in him this year. Like, I think his ADP is fine. I think if you get him in like the 5th or 6th round, you're good. He's so talented at such a young age. They probably won't run the offense through him as much as they have in the past, although they figure to actually have more of a coherent offense this year. The Fred VanVleet pick and roll could help him. New coach could help him. But there's just not that many centers in the NBA. I mean, it's Sabonis, it's Jokic. There's a couple guys who actually have the offense capable of being run through them and have scalable usage.
I'm a little worried about Sengun as well. Like, he really thrived when Kevin Porter was out and he was running things, but they're going to have the ball in VanVleet's hands and Green and Porter and maybe Amen Thompson. And I worry that, and I've said this a lot of times as well, that Udoka is going to be so focused defensively that he'll look on his bench and go, I've actually got Tari Eason on my bench here, and I can put Eason and Smith as my 4 and 5, and that really shores things up defensively. And, I was going to take Giddey. Turner goes 56, Giddey 57. That I worry that he plays like 29 minutes a night, but he could also say, holy shit, this guy is amazing. And our offense is supercharged. He plays 36 a night, and he's a top 20 player. So to me, while his ADP sits in that 50-60 range, I'm not sure there's any chance he actually finishes there. He's either way ahead of it or well below it, and that's a tough one because he's sort of trying to split the middle, but there's almost no way he ends in that area.
Yeah, so I was kind of just trying to decide between him and Scotty Barnes, who actually went immediately one pick after Sengun. I don't necessarily love Scotty Barnes. Not 100% convinced he's like ready to be the leading like playmaker or ball handler, or however you want to put it, on the Raptors after VanVleet's gone. But he would probably is. Maybe he's a higher floor option than Sengun, but they both definitely have some questions.
Oh, they do. There's no doubt about that. I think that if Barnes is the full-time point guard, that's going to be one of the worst half-court offenses you've ever seen, because I don't know how it works, honestly. Like, transition, sure. Half-court, unless Rajakovic has just got some real tricks, I'm not really super confident in how that's going to go. Now, one of the guys that is at the top of my list is someone we just mentioned before, and that's Jeremy Grant, because I think that he is going to put up some pretty strong points league numbers, 4th round type of stuff. But I have to be worried about what the hell is going to happen there in the fantasy playoffs. Now, I pick at 60 and 61. So, I'm not going to pick again until whatever it is, 84. Mm-hmm. And that also brings me to the point of, do I just take the chance now on Ja Morant? Like, it is 60 and 61, but it's not really, because I'm not picking till 80. So it's basically like pick 75-ish area. I think I might just take Ja here, because this is a top 20 player. And it hurts me early on, but I'm not picking again. Hey, let's do it. Let's take Ja. Now, I don't want to then pair him with Jeremy Grant, given that risk. But what I will do is someone that I also think is a little bit overlooked here. And I know Brad Beal's going to lose some value in Phoenix. I'm not sure he's going to lose this much. So I'll take him as well. So I'm happy to get Morant and Beal there. It is 60-61, but I might actually even end up doing a show on this about the differences in drafting at the turn and the way you've got to view it. Like, it's not pick 60-61. Like, it's anywhere in the 70s, 75, 68, whatever it is. Like, it's any of those sort of numbers, because I'm not going to have a shot at these guys. So I think you've got to have a different mindset on the turn.
Yes. That's really important. Drafting... First of all, knowing if you're drafting with other people who you could consider experts or people who are more casual, that depends how much you can lean on ADP. Whether you draft on the turn may reinforce how aggressive you have to be, exactly like you were saying. If you're drafting in the middle, you can be a little bit more conservative. I will say, I mean, I agree with your Beal pick here. I think he's being drafted pretty appropriately. I don't think he's going to lose a ton of usage. I think he's going to still handle the ball a ton. Kevin Durant hasn't exactly been healthy, so there's going to be plenty of nights where Beal is looked at as the number 2 scoring option. And also, after you draft Morant, who's going to miss a third of the season, Beal has point guard eligibility. So that helps you a little bit in terms of like team building.
It's getting back to your pick in a second, but Beal's an interesting one because when that trade happened, I was pretty down on him, and people were talking about, nah, he's still awesome. He's going to do all these things. They have no one else. And I said, look, I'm not sure he's even a top 50 guy, to be honest. And then I've come into this draft season, and he's falling to me every time at like 58, 59. And I'm going, I'll take him in that spot every single time. When I thought I was going to be lower on him, people would be like, oh, no, it's only those 3 guys. They're going to get all the touches, and he'll still go in the 30s. But people are just pushed way back the other way, and I'm ending up with someone who I just thought I'd be way off on, which is an interesting way it works. Jalen Green at 62, that is clearly a points league pick, and I like it. I worry a little bit about how that works in terms of where Kevin Porter sits in the bench role and how usage gets distributed. But I also think that Green can take some steps forward. Let me tell you about this. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I hate many picks. I hate that CJ McCollum pick at 64. So, apologies to you, Amal. I hate it. I don't understand it at all. There are so many guys here on the board. I'm not convinced CJ is a top 90 player, even in points leagues. I've been off on CJ for a few years though. But how do you feel about CJ there?
I think he's a high floor pick. Like if you can get him at pick 100, I think that's fine. It might depend a little bit on like who else is on your team. The reality is like with Ingram hasn't been particularly healthy, and obviously neither has Zion. There's plenty of times where McCollum has to do a lot for that team. And we've seen that before. As I waste a lot of my time talking about CJ McCollum, I think Middleton's interesting to me here. He continues to slip.
Yeah, just I'm
not a big Ayton guy. That's an option. Miles Bridges, maybe Simons, Anunoby. You know what? I'm going to take Middleton here.
I think that's good value.
Yeah. You know, I will say I'm worried a little bit about like the age and the injury. Maybe they sit him back to backs, but like he's still a really good guy who can average 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Talk about another high floor guy and Chris Middleton.
Yeah, look, I am a bit worried about his knee. I'm worried he's going to sit some games, but again, we're talking, maybe he's not a top 40 guy, but maybe he's a top 50 player and you're getting him in the 70s. I think that's pretty good. Oh, man, that's wild. Jabari Smith at 69. Now, I do think Jabari is going to take some steps forward, but he's a little on the early side. I think he could have waited a little bit to get that one in. It's a little early. Cam Johnson at 70. Cam Johnson's a guy that you think is probably more of a category league guy because he thrives on efficiency, but I also think he's got a chance to maybe get to 20 points a game this season with the Nets, which does help his overall numbers.
Yeah, he projects to be kind of their 2A/2B with Spencer Dinwiddie, depending on how you want to look at it. But I mean, I think what was especially good is he came in right away, was plenty aggressive. I think he's a better passer than he showed off in Phoenix, and he played really well in the playoffs. So all of those things are good for him.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he's able to do, whether he's able to up his game somewhat. Jarrett Allen goes 71, Pirtle 72. That's probably the right area. Obviously, as centers, their perceived value is higher in category leagues. I'm not sure it actually is, but their perceived value is higher in category leagues than what it is here. The guy, we're getting back to your pick, but I'm just going to talk about what's sitting at the top of my queue because it's a couple of Portland guys, and do I have the team where I can take that risk? The probably only real worry I have there is Morant, but I've got like Scoot at the top of my list, and I've got Yusuf Nurkic there. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with Nurkic, but I also know that the Portland Trailblazers center situation has Nurkic as the starter and Ibubaji as the backup, Jabari Walker as the backup. Now, I have heard that maybe they're looking at Eddie Tavares, who's playing for Cape Verde at the World Cup, but there's no one on that team as a backup center. So if Nurkic can actually play 30 a night, there might be some value.
People who are deep into fantasy know too well about the ups and downs of Yusuf Nurkic, who at plenty of points throughout his career showed not top 60 upside, but top 30 upside. Yep. But still projects, I mean, assuming, his body hasn't broken down too much, he's like one of the better fantasy point per minute guys in the entire NBA, let alone like left on the board. So I would not blame you for taking him in, what round are we in? The 7th round right now.
Okay, if could he average 16 and 11? Look, there's nothing crazy about that. Like I know that there are injury issues with him and his block numbers have declined, but 16 and 11, 3 assists. It's not that hard. When you look again, he might get traded somewhere into a backup role and that completely kills it, which does hurt a little bit. Austin Reeves goes at 73. I think that's okay. I don't think that's too far off where his numbers should come in. He's obviously playing really well at the World Cup. I honestly thought that Reeves would get more of a bump for being A Lakers player, B White, and C in the World Cup. People tend to overvalue those guys. It hasn't really happened, and I've been able to get him at like 90 in some situations in category leagues even, and I think there's some real. I think his ADP is like outside 100 on some sites. I'm just a little surprised that it hasn't really taken off.
People are definitely being weirdly realistic about his chances of his role with Anthony Davis and LeBron there, and even D'Angelo Russell there, who's going to take up plenty of use. I think that matters. If Miles Bridges goes off the board, I think this is a good spot for him. And honestly, he maybe could have gone earlier than this.
Let me throw a counter to that then as you get ready for your pick, and you can sort of listen and you can also draft. He was like a top 30 guy or whatever he was 2 years ago. Towards the end of that season, he did start to fade back to like 35 or 40 or whatever it was. My worry there is, A, he suspended 10 games, clearly, to start the season. But the fact that he signed a qualifying offer means there was probably little agreement in the valuation between team and player. He's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season, and they brought back PJ Washington. They have Brandon Miller, which conceivably could be their 3 and 4 of the future. So if they don't see him as part of the future, if Miles Bridges said, look, we're signing the qualifying offer and we're pissing off in the off-season, will they actually just put 35 minutes a night into him when he's rusty and he misses the first 10 games when they could get Hayward, Washington, Miller to fill in a lot of those minutes, and maybe he sits as a 30-minute night guy? Now, I don't think that'll happen because I think he'll come out and show that he's still really good, and they'll say, well, we're still winning games and it's Steve Clifford. But I'm a little cautious that maybe there's a marginal deprioritization.
I think that's fair. Yeah. It's hard to tell, but the upside, how many other guys 100%. In this range have the upside? So it's kind of hard to say. But all your points are correct.
So Devin Vassell went after Miles Bridges, and then you took Spencer Dinwiddie, followed by Marcus Smart, Andrew Wiggins at 80. I do like Wiggins there. Can you talk me through the Spencer Dinwiddie one? Because we have heard, and who knows, but we have heard Ben Simmons say, well, I'm actually the starting point guard for this team. Like, is he talking shit? Like, I don't know, he's done quite a few times. Dinwiddie did get a lot of assists last season, but shot horribly. He seems to bounce around a lot. If they're going to go anywhere, they need Simmons to be good. They don't need Dinwiddie to necessarily be that guy. So, how are you viewing that sort of a situation as we get ready for my pick?
Yeah, I was between him and Anthony Simons, and maybe in hindsight I should have gone with Simons, but I'm also kind of worried about what happens to Portland down the stretch with the tanking, and how if Lillard spends the first half of the season there, who knows? And yeah, I really don't know how to evaluate the Ben Simmons situation. First of all, I think he should get drafted in leagues to put that out there. But Dinwiddie, when he came to the Nets last year, played really well. And I think in a points league, he's a good source of points and assists. Like in category leagues, he's not that good because his field goal percentages are not that great. Doesn't really get steals or blocks. But in terms of like volume and role and potential of seeing 35 minutes a game, like he's up there.
All right, so I ended up taking Mark Williams here. I was debating Mark Williams or Nurkic, just that Portland uncertainty lent me towards Mark. Now, I'm going to take a Portland play here, but is it going to be Nurkic or is it going to be old Sterling Henderson? I think Scoot's points league value will far outstrip his category league value just because I think he's going to be inefficient. There are some safer options around, and Simmons is in the queue for me, but we're in round 8 again. I don't pick until 108 after this. Shooting for upside of maybe he's a top 60 player. Let's take Scooter there, which I think he's a top. Look, I think he's probably got top 50 upside in a points league. If that all comes together and Lillard is traded, it's not probably going to hit. But I'm also trying to search that. Where's the other guys in my queue? Nurkic maybe has that upside. There's Wendell Carter there. I don't think he's got that upside to jump ahead into that area. So that's the way I went.
I think that's a fine pick. I mean, maybe you eat it a little bit early in the season if Lillard stays there and plays a ton. But at the same time, it seems impossible for me for Portland to have drafted Scoot Henderson and not play him at least like 24 minutes a game. I feel like the fans would just riot. So
their whole backcourt is so weird. I don't know what the hell's going to. What happens with Sharp? Like, where does he fit? Where does Simons go?
I don't know.
Do they all start together? Like, and but they like Thibel's. The team is weird. I don't understand it, and that's why I'm probably not going to invest heavily in a lot of these guys. But again, trying to get some value at the right spot. After Scoot at 85, Brook Lopez goes at 86. Really hard for me to think that after a career year that he can do anything to get better than last season. And new coach, new scheme, maybe defensively. I just think that there is literally only one way that Brook Lopez can go.
Yep, I'm with you. The age, so much of his offensive season, he had a great year on offense. That was because Chris Middleton was out, and they were very happy to give Lopez more shots from the perimeter and even feature him in the post a little bit more.
Yep.
And I think that pretty much goes away this season.
Yeah, I think he's going to fall back down. And then he put up these insane block numbers. Maybe they stick, maybe they don't. Doesn't matter that much in a points league, though. It's about a lot of that usage. Clay goes at 87. Honestly, he looked dreadful in the playoffs, but the last 2 months of the regular season, he was dominating. So I don't really know what to do with that. He was shit at the start of the year. He got on fire, and then I've never seen him look as bad as he did in the playoffs. So what the hell is he? Like, he's 33. You can't ignore down stretches at that age, and I don't know what to make of it. I don't mind him in this spot. There's probably a few other guys that, again, when we're talking about chasing some upside here in round 8, we're getting to that stage where I'm not sure Clay has the room to jump into the 60s, and that means I'd probably steer a little bit clearer of that.
Yeah, Clay is not someone I'm targeting this year. Let's put it that way. For all the reasons you outlined, at this point in his career, he's mostly a points guy in points leagues. You're not getting the 3-point benefit, and then is he, the injury risk, the rest risk, all of that stuff.
Here's a theory that I just came up with. Maybe I didn't come up with it. Maybe it's been around for a while. But when we're talking points leagues and we're talking drafting versus a category league, I feel that there is more rationale behind getting younger players. Part of the reason you don't generally go for rookies or younger guys as much in category leagues is because often their efficiency is really, really bad, right? And if younger players, even on bad teams, like, that's going to kill you. But it doesn't in points league. So Jalen Green, Paolo Banchero, like, I just chucked Jaden Ivey onto my queue here, whereas in a category league, I'd never even consider it. But I think that when we're looking at points leagues, going for these younger guys on bad teams, gunnery type players, when you're not going to get pinged for the efficiency as much, I think there's probably, skewing towards that sort of a player probably makes a little bit more sense in this format.
I think that's valid. Yeah, you don't care about the percentages as much, and you just care about rolling the offense. How much does the organization and the coach trust this guy to handle the ball and make good things happen on offense? Can just be. It's a lot more viable to draft that way in points leagues compared to category leagues.
So you took Capella over my man Nurkic. How are you not worried about Okongwu? Because I've seen Okongwu's been off the board in all of my drafts, I think, before Capella. This isn't the case here. So you're feeling a little bit more confident in him?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think Okongwu's going to play more minutes than Capella. I think it's. I mean, maybe they split more. I think they'll split time at the worst for Capella, and Capella's had some injury issues in the past, but I needed another center. He's decent per minute. He's just out there getting his double-double with a block or two here and there. So, some of this was positional, but I don't mind him here.
Derek White goes at 95, Michael Porter at 94. We're getting to the stage where I think I'm going to have to take our photos off the screen because it's blocking the, what's his name? What do you call it? The draft. That's what it's called. Let's just remove that. If I push the right buttons. Yep. All right. Let's bring that across now. Take us off so you can see what's going on. Chris Paul's falling a little bit here. And I know there is obviously concern about his role and his health, but at some point, I think once you get outside the top 100, like, surely he can be a top 80 guy per game. Like, we have to be getting into that area. Whereas Derek White goes 95, Tyus Jones 96. I want to hear your take on Tyus Jones, actually, because I feel like I'm more down on Tyus than other people are. And the pushback I always get on it, Alex, people go, well, look at what he did as a starter last season in Memphis. I'll hear your take on it, then I'll throw my take out to you on it as well.
So I was actually debating between Tyus Jones, Markelle Fultz, and Clint Capella with my last pick. Yeah. Jones, my question is Jordan Poole effectively going to be the point guard? How much are they going to trust Tyus Jones organizationally? I think at its core, he is not really a high usage player. On the other hand, who else does Washington have to turn to besides Poole and Kuzma? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so You hit on a lot of the things there. Who else they have to turn to? Well, Delon Wright is still there. Jordan Poole will run a little bit, but they can also get Corey Kispert will get some shots. They'll get a little bit into Denny Avdia. Do they want to see what Johnny Davis can do? Probably not. Like, I sort of know what he can do. But Tyus Jones is an older guy on a one-year deal. Now, I think he's good to set up these other players, don't get me wrong. But if you throw out his numbers as a starter in Memphis, that doesn't make any sense for Washington. Because when he was starting in Memphis, he was replacing Ja Morant. He wasn't playing next to Ja Morant. But in Washington, he plays next to Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma, and maybe even Corey Kispert, as these guys who are higher usage players. So if you were to say that he was coming in and replacing Jordan Poole, I'd say, yeah, like maybe he can do those same numbers that he was doing replacing Ja Morant. But playing next to Bane and Jackson is not the same as playing next to Kuzma and Poole in terms of shot distribution. Plus, neither of those guys, Bane and Jackson, can handle the ball at all, whereas Jordan Poole can, and he will a lot. So I don't think you just plug and play starter numbers from one team to the other.
Yeah, I think that's all completely fair. I will say maybe I'm a little higher on Tyus Jones because I'm lower on Denny Avdia, who I think just has proven to not be able to do that much with increased usage.
Denny Avdia was good last season when Beal was out and they let him run a little bit of point forward. That's just not going to happen, though, because Kuzma and Poole are going to be doing a lot of that. And I think Avdia is a really strong fit between those two guys as a tall guy who can defend, who can do a bit of connective passing. It doesn't mean shit for fantasy unless probably one of those guys and maybe two of those guys are out. So I'm not that interested in him for a fantasy point of view. What did you do at that pick there? I'll just run through what happened, actually. We got Chris Paul, 98, Trey Jones, 99, Duran, 100, Gafford, 101, that's a steal. Fultz, 102, that is also a steal from you. Okongwu, 103, and then Gaz Trent goes at 104. Really don't like Gary Trent either in this situation, but I love that pick from you of Markelle Fultz. I don't know how he lasted that long.
I still think his name kind of has some stink on it, to be honest. Yeah. And he was excellent last season, and I think maybe people are worried about I mean, I don't think people necessarily should be worried about the Anthony Black situation.
They should not.
And then people like Cole Anthony as well. I just think people perceive the backcourt to be a lot more in contention than it actually is. Like, it's Fultz's team to be the point guard of.
Yeah, when he plays, they're really good, and they want to be good, and they want to make the playoffs, and Anthony Black is a rookie who's a point guard who can't shoot, and those players are bad. Almost exclusively bad. I'm not saying he's going to be bad in the future, but a 19-year-old rookie point guard who can't shoot is a bad player. That is just how it works, and they're not starved for depth at that position. Fultz makes them better. Fultz will play. Maybe he gets hurt, but I don't know what happens in the future or where they move from here, but I don't think there's any risk of, well, sorry, Marco, you're playing 20 now because Black's playing 30. I think that would be highly, highly surprising. I'm biting the bullet, Alex. I am taking Ben Simmons at pick number 108. This is, I think, very clear top 50 upside. It is an absolute pipe dream to get there, but he can do it. Like, I think we've seen top 30 seasons from him in points leagues before. It's not outrageous, and we're in round 10 here. So, like, if it hits, love it, fantastic. And the next one I'm going to go is a guy that I'm not a big fan of in category leagues because I don't think he's particularly good. He doesn't do a huge amount of stuff, and I'm not even sure he's going to start, but he might, and that's Keldon Johnson. So
I knew exactly who you were going to say.
All he does is score, and that's totally good. I'm totally good with taking him here. Again, I don't know whether he starts, but he's going to score. Probably not on 28 usage like he was last season, but he's going to score. And I would never entertain taking him here in a category league. But here, yeah, let's go.
Keldon Johnson and RJ Barrett. They're in that same exact category for me.
Man, I think RJ Barrett's he's going to be in real trouble this season. I think that there's just too many guys there, and we saw towards the end of the season that he wasn't playing 36, he was playing 30 or 29, yep. And yeah, I think it might happen again. I'm a bit worried.
Quickly's good. DiVincenzo is good. I love Josh Hart.
Grimes is good.
Grimes is good. Yeah, almost forgot about Grimes.
And part of the, I think, Barrett thing is just like there's whatever the opposite of a stigma is. It's like, well, he was pick number 3. He was our guy that was supposed to be really good. And again, just quietly at the end of the season, like, he didn't close games. He played 30 minutes instead of 36, and his usage dropped down. And there are so many other options that Josh Hart's just a better player. He's not a better scorer, but he's a better player. And I don't think that he'll get taken out of the starting lineup, but I think we'll get more of that lower minutes sort of stuff from RJ.
Yeah. I think he's getting a Knicks bump as well.
Probably, yeah. After Keldon at 109 was Bruce Brown 110, Valanciunas 111. Now, I don't like Valanciunas, but I think that's some pretty good value there. Aaron Gordon 112, Kevin Porter 113. What do you make for Kevin Porter? Because I've come out and said, look, he's coming off the bench, and I've had multiple people, and I didn't really expect this push back. No way. There's no way. He's like their highest paid player out of the young guys. He's definitely playing. He's still getting 34 a night, and I just don't see it. I think when you sign a point guard and then you draft a point guard, pretty sure your starting point guard from the year before is not particularly highly valued. So he might still get 30 coming off the bench, but that's upper limit, I would say.
I'm with you entirely. I think there's almost no chance that he starts. I mean, I think they're going to go with Van Vliet, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Jabari Smith, Şengün. I think that's going to be their starting five. So, I mean, hey, maybe he plays 26 to 28 minutes a game. It's possible, like in a six-man role. I just would not necessarily draft him this high.
That's not 34 minutes, though, which is what he got last season. What do you think? Okay, let's talk. We talked a little bit about Charlotte. Old Brian here has gone Brandon Miller at 114. I know you're shooting for upside, but Brian, I didn't know you were shooting for negative upside. What are we looking at here at 114? I just don't like Brandon Miller. I know, again, someone argued with me about it yesterday. So, man, how could you have him sixth in the draft? Because I just don't think he's that good. And I don't really know how he does it on a front court that is unbelievably crowded.
I will say in Summer League, the thing that stood out to me the most was just how few standout plays he had. Let's put it that way. And I think a guy who is of that body type, who projects to kind of be like, again, for better or for worse, in the Paul George mix, if they don't have any elite skill, it's just going to take them a really long time to get there. And maybe when they get there after 4 or 5 years, it ends up panning out really well and they're an all-star. But in the first few years, it may not be amazing.
Yeah, well, Paul George was bad for the first year or two. Chris Middleton, who's the guy that I comp him to, was not good for the first couple of years. And it's all about looking at these guys. Like, what is the pathway? Where is the 34 minutes and the big usage? Because let's say he even does start. He's not getting touches over Ball. He's not getting touches over Rozier, most likely. Would he share them? Like, he'd be third maybe with PJ Washington. He'd be fourth if Miles Bridges starts. And where does he sit with Gordon Hayward? Right. Like, there's no clear path for him to be a high usage player, let alone a high minutes player, let alone a consistent player as a rookie. So I'm just out on him. Like, yeah, sure, you can. Again, we're hunting up, so that's no problem. If it was round 13, I'd say go for it. I'm not even sure that he actually has that upside this season.
Well, yeah, I think there are just other guys on the board, like you mentioned, that have higher upside.
Like the one that you just took at 115, Jaden Ivey, which I really do like. There is some concern, I guess. There is just at the end of last season, he started to step it up because he was handling the ball more, and he won't do that as much this season. And especially if they do eventually put a Sar Thompson into the starting group, I'd be a little bit concerned, but I still think that the upside for him is pretty strong. And I love that pick that went one after you, actually, Zach Collins. Old Bae Young. He's doing a lot of good stuff here with his picks here. Let's go through some of the other picks. Zach Collins at 116, Jordan Clarkson 117, I really like too. Shaden Sharp 118, Draymond 119, Avdia 120, Barrett 121, Toppin 122. Do you think Obi Toppin's a starter in Indiana?
So I've thought about it, and I have no idea. I think they might bring him off the bench, if only because I think projects to be a better offensive player right now than Jarris Walker. And so then you could have him off the bench doing a little more, handling the ball, just jacking up shots with the bench unit. But I have no idea.
Let me frame it to you this way. I don't think he's very good. I don't think he's a very good defensive player, but there is no better situation for him than on this team. And if you want to talk about deficiencies in defense, like put Miles Turner on one side and Bruce Brown next to him, well, I think it works all right. And then you probably do need a little bit of offensive pop with maybe Mathurin and Halliburton as the other two guys there. Whereas if you put Jarris Walker in there, you're running Jarris Walker, Bruce Brown, and Miles Turner as your 3, 4, 5, which is like Walker might be quite bad offensively. Again, I don't think Obi Toppin's a long-term starter, but I couldn't have picked a better pairing next to Miles Turner and with Tyrese Halliburton than what it is there. I think he might start off with 28 minutes and it drops later in the year, but I do think they'll give him that first chance at things. Bobby Portis goes, Tari Eason goes, Steven Adams goes, and now it's your pick.
Yeah, I got some guys I like here. I've been getting Malcolm Brogdon in basically every single draft. I don't know if I need to draft him here necessarily. I might be able to wait. And with that in mind, I think I will take Mitchell Robinson here, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
It's just, again, a classic, like, if he can actually get 30 minutes, he would be amazing in fantasy. Will he get it? Probably not. Will he get hurt? Certainly. Will Thibodeau decide he likes Hartenstein at some point? Maybe.
Jericho Sims.
But or Jericho Sims or Isaiah Roby for some reason.
Oh, yeah. They're only other power forward on the roster. He's the only other power forward there, which is very interesting if Randall gets hurt.
Apparently, someone started a center run here because it went Steven Adams, me, Mitchell Robinson, then Rob Williams, then Zubac went after that.
Yeah, because there's probably not a huge amount left after that, is there? No, we're running a little light on centers now as those guys all come off the board. Although there is a guy, PJ Washington's still around. So he doesn't have center eligibility. Interesting.
Oh, wow.
Fair enough.
Well, it's kind of like how
he didn't play center last year at all.
Well, true. If you're in a Yahoo league, people should know right now that Daniel Gafford has power forward eligibility only. So if you're sorting for center, you might miss him.
Absolutely insane. When was the last time he played power forward? Never. Like why is he? And the other one that's crazy there is Josh Giddey has 3 position eligibility. That's fantastic, Alex. Shooting guard, small forward, and power forward. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think Wagner does as well, right?
What? Yeah, he is. I think Ingram does too. But my point is that Giddey's a point guard. Why has he got shooting guard, small forward, and power forward eligibility? And I'll tell you why. And I get into this, I'm like, fuck, Mathurin just went. Damn it, that's who I was going to take.
Yeah, that's nice.
Asargo's at 129, Mathurin 130. I had this argument with someone yesterday. They were saying, well, why have you got Giddey in point guard tiers? He's a power forward. He's not, but Basketball Reference lists him as a power forward, playing 65% of his minutes at power forward and 15% of his minutes at center, which is clearly incorrect. And it just, again, this is a blanket statement. Basketball Reference is awesome. I love their site. Do not for a single second trust their position estimates, because all they do is they look who's on the court and they go, who's the tallest player? That's the center. Who's the second tallest player? That's the power forward. And Giddey never once plays power forward or center. He doesn't. It's him and Shea, 50-50 ball handling, and Giddey is a top 5 passer in the NBA. Top 5 passers in the NBA don't play center. Sorry, that's not true. Nikola Jokic does, but Giddey's clearly not like Nikola Jokic. Yes. It is my pick, and I'm waffling on here. Now, that pisses me off, that Mathurin one, because that's who I wanted, and he was very clearly my next guy. Damn it, I'm going to take Colin Sexton. Again, I just don't like Colin Sexton, but
I actually like it.
There is a clear path for him there as well. And the next guy I'm going to look at, on my projections, this next guy is higher. So I don't know how I feel about it, but again, we're in round 12. Let's see what Jeremy Sohan can do. What does he deliver us in year 2? I don't love it, but I also don't hate it. But he for some reason he's projecting super high in my projections. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, Sohan, I think if you're talking about a guy who has good standing in terms of like Popovich trusts him and likes him and he does a lot of good things on the court, like even if he doesn't start, which I don't think he's going to, he could still see close to 30 minutes a game just because he is kind of multi-position, does a lot of the good things. So he's completely fine draft pick.
I don't know, like, top 10 draft pick. The last time the Spurs started a rookie before last season, I think it was Kawhi, and they just don't usually do it with any rookie. And Sohan started all last season, and I'm not sure they'll just quickly demote him. I'm not sure. And I'll always say this, and I've said it a lot of times in this podcast. The fact that Keldon Johnson came out and was the one answering the questions about maybe coming off the bench, I was like, yeah, I'm happy to do whatever the team needs. Makes me think that decision's been discussed and maybe already decided.
That's certainly possible. I mean, Keldon Johnson makes sense as like a scoring 6-man off the bench. I think that's like when it's all said and done, I think that's like that should be his role.
Yeah. And if I was the Spurs, I would have tried to trade him to a good team to maybe get like a first and a future second, and he can be a killer 6-man on a good team. But they're not going to do that because I don't think that he is a guy that you build around as your top 2 or top 3 sort of scorer. But we'll see what they end up doing. PJ Washington does go at 135. After Sohan 133, it was Amen Thompson 134, who I found out yesterday that both him and Asar Thompson, Alex, have the same middle name. Did you know that?
Oh man, I know this. Is it just X? What is it?
No, it's 4 letters. They're all capitalized. It's XLNC.
Oh, excellency.
Yes.
Thank you.
W.
I knew there was an X in there.
What an
I couldn't remember exactly what it was.
What an unbelievable middle name. So yeah, Excellency Thompson over there goes at 134. PJ Washington 135. Bojan at 136. This is the Bojan Bogdanovic pick there. You look at it and go, that is totally reasonable. He averaged 20 points a game last season, but I also hate it for the same, like for reasons, because I just go, look, what's the point? Like, is he going to stay on this team? Is he going to be the number one usage guy? And the answer to both those questions is probably not and definitely not. And I don't see the upside for him at age 34 at that position. So I'd be more likely to, like we talked about earlier, like if Kevin Huerter might not get drafted in this draft, or Karis LeVert, or Patrick Williams, or Jalen Suggs, or any of these guys might not get drafted. So you can just sort of cycle them through. And I'm not that excited about a low upside pick in round 12. Sorry to whoever.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Sorry to that man who picked it. I was a mile again, man. I didn't mean to shit on you again. Or you got bumped in at 139. Well done.
I did. I think I've drafted him in all but one of my mock drafts. The elbow thing is a little bit weird. They tried to trade him. That's not a good situation.
No.
And so you never know what's going to happen there. But the reality is he's great per minute. The getting rid of Marcus Smart means that if there's a situation, and I don't know if Peyton Pritchard's ready for more minutes. So
he's going to have to be. They just signed Svima Hailuk today, actually, which is interesting.
They did.
So he was pretty good last season for Charlotte, and they need that depth.
They do need that depth. But if there's a point where Brogdon starts seeing 30 minutes a game, which he could just almost by default, assuming he's healthy, or Tatum or Brown gets hurt, like I think the usage funnels to him because he's proven in his career that he's able to handle starting caliber usage.
Yeah, look, I think that he is probably getting slept on a little bit, and I do worry about the elbow. I do worry about the trade issue, but their depth is horrendous at point guard. Or at guard in general. So yeah, there's no problem there. Now, if I've shit on Amal with a couple of his picks, I'm going to shit on someone else here. Flamin' Galar picks Jared Vanderbilt at 141. I don't understand it. Even in a category league, I'm like, I don't know about that. In a points league, I don't know what he's bringing. Like, is he going to start over Rui? I don't know. But even if he does, what's he going to average? 7 points? I really don't see, especially when like Quickly and Melton go as the next two picks who have got significantly higher upside, or even like Jarris Walker goes 144, Keontae George 145. They're the sort of flyers that we want to hit on. Like, let's see what happens. Could Keontae win the starting point guard job? Yeah. If he doesn't, you drop him. Sure, no problem. But versus Vanderbilt, who's got, I don't think, any upside really at all.
No, his role isn't really scalable. Pretty much everything you mentioned. Like, he's just, I would rather bet on like a ball handler at this point. Like, or someone who, if the guy in front of him gets hurt in the first 2 weeks of the season, would step into a starting role and see legitimate upside. Now what do I want to do here?
I'm going to take, it's your pick, but I'm going to take Bae Young is definitely using my projections because he's taking the player that's at the top of my projection list every single time, because Sadiq Bey was just hovering there and he took him, and every time that's happening, Bae Young. So I don't know who you are, but I'm going to pretty much guarantee you're a member of Basketball Monster and you're using my projections here almost assuredly.
Yeah, I think I am just going to kind of bite the bullet here and draft Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah.
I'm not a Schroeder guy. I don't know how many people who are fans of the NBA are Schroeder guys, but he has a legitimate chance of being the starting point guard for the Raptors, or at least playing starter caliber minutes and controlling the offense, especially if you aren't convinced that Scotty Barnes is that guy, which I'm not 100% convinced. So I think he should get drafted. He's a starting point guard on an NBA team that he could see relatively high usage.
Yeah. I agree. I don't know whether he's going to start either, but I know he's going to get some pretty good minutes. And I also know that their ball handling situation is pretty dire. Like, it's Barnes, who's again not really a point guard, and it's Schroeder. Are they going to suddenly believe in Malachi Flynn? I doubt it. So he's got a pretty good role.
I think so. And then same team, Grady Dick goes actually a couple picks after that, which I think is interesting. I feel like they're so desperate for 3-point shooting that Gary Trent and Grady Dick might just play more minutes than people expect just out of pure necessity.
Yeah, but I guess the thing is that it's hard to play both of those guys together, I would say, and then that would mean you're cutting back Anunoby, Barnes, and Siakam to get them there, which makes it like Dick is fine, but maybe he plays 20 minutes a night, 23 minutes a night. Is there a 30-minute upside there? I'm not sure there is. I'm not sure. Wait,
yeah,
Christian Wood went. Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, talk about a per minute player, Christian Wood.
Kevon Looney 155. All right, my pick. This happens a lot. I don't like these guys necessarily as players, but I think Isaiah Stewart's going to start. Let's see what happens. Maybe he gives me something. He probably doesn't, but I think he's going to start. And then with my final pick, Grant Williams is going to start, but I don't think I'm going to take him. I'm just going to do it in nearly every draft. I'm just going to take Paul Reed. If they legitimately want to try him as a power forward, then he blows through this. Now, it's more value in a category league for sure, but PJ Tucker's the starting power forward. George Niang is gone. If they're developing Reed into that role, well, again, might drop him in 2 weeks. Doesn't matter. Versus me taking Al Horford, like, what's the point of that?
Yeah, I think if you are, again, if you're kind of deep into the fantasy sphere, you've known that Paul Reed is a permanent god. And so, like you said, even if they don't even feature him, like if they don't give him more touches, if he just gets the same amount of sort of natural flow of touches that he's been getting throughout his NBA career, but they just give him some more minutes, that pick could still end up being worth it. And if they also give him a few more touches here and there, or Joel Embiid, if Joel Embiid gets hurt right away, and then Paul Reed, 32 minutes a game, that's going to be a huge pick.
It is, I hope. Josh Green goes at 159. He's playing really well in the Olympics. I'm certain he's going to start for the Mavericks. His usage is tough to see next to Kyrie and next to Luka. The difference there is that without Christian Wood on that team, replaced by Grant Williams, that's 25 usage to 16 usage. So there is somebody who can step up. So it's not just about, when he was next to Kyrie and Luka last season, he didn't get those numbers, because without Wood in the mix, it does mean, and replaced by Grant Williams and not replaced by a high usage player, then it's almost impossible for Kyrie and Luka to do more. So is it Hardaway or is it Green that takes that step up? So I'm interested to see what happens there. And I like this. Amal, here you go. I'm sorry for all the shitting on you. I love your pick of Josh Richardson there, because I think he's going to start in Miami, irrespective of what they do with the Lillard trade. And you're getting a starter who's shown fantasy ability in the past to pick 160. Let's go for it.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick as well. I ended up going with Taylor Hendricks. It could be a complete flop. It's the last pick of our draft, and we didn't see him in summer league, so he's kind of a mystery box right now. And with John Collins there, his minutes could certainly not be if he doesn't see 25 minutes a game, this pick is not going to be worth it 100%. But the blocks upside and is kind of interesting, and if he can get hot from three, who knows?
I really like him. I had him at number 4 on my overall draft board. Not seeing him at Summer League was a bummer, but I really like him long term. I guess the worry there I do have is, just Collins, Olynyk, Kessler, Markin, and all those guys in front of him. Maybe he plays 20 minutes, and I think that he could be starting if they make moves later on. But I think that would be one where you'd have to have a lot of patience for it to pay off. And everyone can see the screen there. I'm going to bring us back over onto the screen. Yeah, I'll bring us back over onto the screen, actually, and then I will, I'll bring us over there. All right, so you want to go through your team for us, Alex?
Yes. Let's see. I grabbed Tatum first, then Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, Paolo Banchero, Alperen Şengün, Middleton, Dinwiddie, Capella, Markelle Fultz, Jaden Ivey, Mitch Robinson, Malcolm Brogdon, Dennis Schroeder, and Taylor Hendricks.
And I'll remove us again so you can see all of my team. My team at pick 12 started with Sabonis, Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle, Evan Mobley, Ja Morant, Bradley Beal, Mark Williams, Scoot Henderson, Ben Simmons, Keldon Johnson, Colin Sexton, Jeremy Sohan, Isaiah Stewart, and finally Paul Reed. In that last round, just looking at most people going real flyer stuff there. So after Reed was John Kuminga, Josh Green, Josh Richardson, Kelly Olynyk, I'm not sure has got much upside. Cam Whitmore has got upside. I don't think he's going to play. You took Hendricks. Suggs is a good pick. Anthony I do like, but very, very squished. Bogdanovic, maybe. Herb Jones, absolutely no upside at all, I don't think, in that scenario. And last pick, Sasha Vezenkov. Yeah, I don't think he's going to play enough, but we don't know. We'll see how that goes. And that guy, Walls of Jericho, last 3 picks, Jarris Walker, Keontae George, Sasha Vezenkov, really was just hunting upside, which is absolutely, I think, the right way to be going about things in fantasy drafts towards the end. Alex, that ends the show for us today. The mock draft is over. Thank you for coming on and doing that with me. Now, what have you got cooking over at RotoWire at the moment?
Oh, we got a million things cooking. If you just go to the RotoWire fantasy basketball front page, you will see a bunch of articles that we are pumping out. We're doing mock drafts all the time, so just visit the front page of the basketball site, and you'll see pretty much everything that we're up to.
Go and check Alex out over on Twitter, and go check out RotoWire as well. Alex, thanks for coming on for the first time, and hopefully it's not the last time.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And that will do it for me today. Don't forget to follow this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on the Odyssey app on YouTube. You thumb it up and you leave those comments down below. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.
Rocket, we can't think. Sorry, mate. Come on.